There are some stories that just have to be told. Wings of Eagles is one such story.
I don't know.
It was a cold autumn day in the year 2008 when I first sat down in my office to read the story of Georgia Alvarez and her son Joseph. She said, "I will never forget this as long as I live, even though I wish I could." We sat down side by side, Alberta and I, facing the intern, holding hands. She started off with the words, "I'm sorry, but..." That's all I needed to hear. Tears started rolling down my face and they didn't stop for 3 days. She went on to tell us that there was no mistake, that Joseph had leukemia. Well, I cried, and I cried. I kept telling her over and over, "Not Joseph. Please, not Joseph. It could be anyone else in the world, but not Joseph." I just kept crying out to her, not hearing her words. I stopped holding Alberta's hand and just hung my face, looking at my lap. We ended our talk and I followed the doctor out of the room. Walking faster and faster down the hall toward the elevator, my husband passed me. Riding down the elevator, I don't even remember looking up. I remember looking at my shoes. As soon as those elevator doors opened, my husband dashed out and almost ran to the doors that led out of the hospital. With blurred vision, I caught up to him and put my hand on his shoulder and witnessed something I had never seen before in all the years of our marriage. My husband, this big, strapping man who I thought was invincible, was crying. I started comforting him, forgetting my own heartache. But the agony and despair in my husband's face told the story of how he felt. He felt punished. He felt burdened. He felt betrayed. Almost 2 decades later, Georgia Alvarez will now tell you the story of her son Joseph and the foundation that began in honor of his name and his memory, Wings of Eagles.
There was something about Joseph that people just were drawn to. It was really odd because I could be walking with the kids and people, it was like young children and the elderly, it seemed like, were really drawn to Joseph. And people would walk like across the street just to come and look at him or touch him and say, "Oh, he was I saw him from across the street. He's such a cute little boy. I just had to come over and look at him and talk to him." I mean, and then Joseph was also different in the way that he was a very giving and compassionate child from a very young age. He was very giving and compassionate. One time my sister came to town and she wanted to take the kids out Christmas shopping. And I couldn't go with them because I was at work. So I gave Joseph $5 and Mary $5 and my niece and my nephew each $5 so that they could go Christmas shopping. And this was in the middle 80s. So of course, you know, times had changed. $5 was a lot of money for a little kid. And I remember my sister coming back from town and me asking what the kids get. And she said, "Well, Joseph didn't get anything because they were going into a store and there was a homeless man on the street, and Joseph had given him his $5 that he was to go shopping with because he said that the homeless man needed it more than he did." So, I mean, that was just the type of person Joseph was. When there was anybody that was injured, he would always go find help or find relief, and I don't know, he just was a good person. Right after he turned 8 years old, Joseph started having headaches, and he started losing his appetite, and he wasn't sleeping all that well. And this was unusual for him. Not saying that he was always extremely healthy, because he had his health problems, but because he had asthma when he was growing up. But this was out of character for him, because Joseph was like one of those kids. They'd get up at 5 a.m., run, think, work all day, play all day, and go to bed at like 8:30. I mean, he just never ran out of energy. And he was a big eater, because he was a husky boy and very stocky. And so he just never ran out of energy. But over the 6 months, when he started complaining about headaches, and then he'd get these oddball fevers during the day. You know, he'd spike a fever, 102.1, and then by evening it was gone. You know, it was just things like that. So I started taking him to his pediatrician about once a month, saying, you know, there's something wrong, you know, but it was none of these, really anything specific that I could put my finger on. So the doctor said, he goes, well, I don't really know what's wrong with him. He goes, but let's take a blood test just to make sure that it's nothing serious. So told me to bring him back the next morning early, because Joseph was supposed to fast. He wasn't supposed to eat anything before the blood test. So I believe I took him to the lab at the Mangrove Medical Group at about 8 a.m. in the morning. I was saying, gosh, I hope he doesn't have something like mono. And I got to thinking about, or maybe diabetes, you know. Alberto Jr. called from the house going, Georgia, the doctor's on the phone. So it was 6:20 at night. And so even though this was the summer, it was still really nice outside. It was just like, whoa, doctors don't call you. You know, they don't call you at night. You know, so I went running down the hill, and I grabbed the phone, and Dr. Johnson said, well, Joseph's urine test came out clean, but his blood test, he looks like he has leukemia. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, leukemia. And I had only actually heard of a couple other people in my life, 2 or 3 other people in my life, having leukemia. Didn't exactly know what it was, knew it was related to cancer, sounded serious. So I told Dr. Johnson, can you hold on for a second? And I yelled down the hall to my husband, Alberto. I said, Alberto, pick up the extension. The doctor wants to tell you something. And then I got back on the phone with the doctor, and I said, could you repeat to my husband what you just told me? And he told my husband, it looks like Joseph has leukemia.
For a little over 17 months, the Alvarez family fought bravely on through the horrors of chemotherapy, radiation, and an excruciating bone marrow transplant. But sadly, the battle ended on July the 28th, 1991. Joseph died in his own home, on his mother's pillow, with both parents by his side. Joseph's life ended, but his inspiration lives on.
Between the time that Joseph relapsed, in fact, it happened immediately on our ride home from UC Davis, that day that they said that Joseph had 0 chance for survival. It even said it on, I have it on a document, that Joseph has 0% chance of survival. You ever see that about one of your kids? It was horrid. I mean, documentation. Well, during our stays at the different hospital, we realized, because we were getting a huge amount of financial and emotional support from friends, families, people that we didn't even know that helped our family financially and emotionally through this situation, our crisis situation. I mean, Joseph didn't go without anything. All of our bills were always paid. You have to remember, we had 2 households, one in Chico and one for 4 months in Palo Alto. And all of that was paid by the generosity of people that just cared about us. But that wasn't what we saw, which was normal to other people who were in the same situation that we were in. So after Joseph died, and then I had Angela, and I got my strength back, my husband and I got our strength back, we decided that we were going to help other people in Joseph's memory the same way that we were helped, and that we were going to call it Wings of Eagles, the Joseph Alvarez Organization for Seriously Ill Children. And we founded Wings of Eagles in June of 1993, really not knowing what we were doing, but we knew that we wanted to help families that were in this terrible crisis that we had been in. We were a middle-income family. We did not, we applied for services, but we did not qualify for any services. So we were stuck in between that rock and the hard place. We weren't low income, so we didn't get any services, but we weren't rich enough to pay for everything. It was because of the generosity of our friends, family, and community that we were able to survive that financial storm that we went through. So that's what we based our thoughts of what we wanted Wings of Eagles to be that safety net for families that had no other resource like we had. And so we started Wings of Eagles, the Joseph Alvarez Organization, in June of 93. Our first fundraiser was October of 93. We put on a Mexican dinner. We raised $1,800 for our first fundraiser. We were ecstatic, and we helped one family that year. We helped them save their house, and we gave them a really great Christmas because they fell behind on their mortgage payments, and they were about to lose their home. And we were able to pay their mortgage and also give them gift certificates to the Chico Mall so that they could do a really nice Christmas for their family. Well, the second year, we raised $5,000. Wings of Eagles raised $5,000, and we helped 5 families that year. The third year, we raised $15,000, and we helped more families. So since that time, since 1993, Wings of Eagles has raised well over $3 million and helped over 1,000 families.
Wow.
That have children with cancer, and not only cancer, but children with other serious life-threatening illnesses. And it was all because of one little boy. He was special. I learned so much from him. I was not the same person after Joseph passed away because I had learned so much from him. I had learned that there was more important things in life than material things. Your most important things in your life are your children and your family, things that are so irreplaceable that you do not even realize that until it happens. We're here for a reason. The reasoning isn't just for our own selfish needs. The reason is to help others. I went through a tragic time in my life to learn that lesson, but we're here to help others. You know, you're supposed to be giving and loving.